Well, hello everyone and welcome back. And what's on tap for today? Well, I'm going to be doing a reaction video to Michael Knowles interviewing Congresswoman Lauren Boebart of Colorado in regards to what is going on with the speakership saga of Kevin McCarthy. What were some of the inner workings? What were some of the things that you were trying to do? Why is your stance the way it is? Why are you against, Kevin McCarthy along with some of the other members of the Freedom Caucus? We're going to get into all that, but before we do, if you haven't already done so, we hope you subscribe to the channel. You're watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your guest host for today. My name is Dr. Shaikh, and if you haven't done so, as I said, go ahead and hit that notification bell, like and share this video. Let's get right into the video right now.
To figure out the sort of people who have been power in the GOP for a very long time might be able to figure out if they had an ounce of self-awareness, but they don't, so instead they're blaming Lauren Boebart. We have Lauren on the call. Lauren, thank you so much. I know you're very, very busy right now, but thank you for making time to come on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on.
I just got to say one thing, folks. I love Lauren Boebart. I love her sass. I love her spunk. She's brilliant. She's well-versed in the issues. She's MAGA. She's conservative. She's gorgeous. I mean, and she knows what a woman is. I bet you if you ask Lauren Boebart to define a woman, okay, she'd know what that is. And I'll tell you what, Lauren Boebart is the definition of an absolutely brilliant, classy, sassy, spunky, beautiful woman. And we are so glad and so fortunate to have her representing us as MAGA and conservatives. But let's go ahead and continue on.
Michael.
So, Lauren, where does it all stand? We've given a recap of the speaker fight through last night on the show. Kevin McCarthy lost 3 rounds of voting 2 days ago. He loses 3 rounds of voting yesterday. You and those terrible, evil House Freedom Caucus Republicans, you're not budging here. So what happens?
Well, let's begin at where it started. This started in the summer. We wanted to handle this privately and have a solution before January 3rd. These negotiations began in the summer and they were dismissed because Kevin McCarthy thought he was going to have this massive red wave and our votes did not matter. When he saw that the $300 million that he raised did not produce the red wave that he promised, he realized quickly he's going to need our votes. And so some concessions were put into play. It was very difficult to get them into play. It was difficult to get them approved with our rules process, the way Washington, D.C. operates and functions. We want to fundamentally change this town. It is broken. It is less popular with the American people than cockroaches. So we have to.
So I just want to stop here and basically say, folks, what you're hearing out on the mainstream media, what you're hearing out in the academic circles, what you're basically hearing on the, the alphabet networks, what you're hearing from the pundits and the establishment, especially from the Republican side, and we know we're hearing from the Democrat side, but within the Republican side, right, those never Trumpers, what they're basically saying is that this is so, this is terrible. This is not what democracy is like. This is, they're holding up the speakership. These guys are messing everything up. And what Lauren and these other members of the Freedom Caucus, what they're basically trying to say and do is that this is a constitutional republic, folks. And this is exactly what the founding fathers wanted when they put these rules into effect. And so there is nothing wrong with what's going on right now. You've got democracy, you've got a constitutional republic playing out the way it should be. And then once everything is done, the dust has been settled. If Kevin McCarthy can whip up the votes, hey, those are the rules. But if he can't, then guess what? Things have to change and you're going to have to go with another candidate or do something. But what they're doing here, don't get fooled. Don't get trapped into thinking that, oh, you know what, the Republicans, there's no unity. They're just fighting. Okay, so what? That's fine. It's okay. Because in the end, the constitutional republic process, the democratic process, If it wins out, and if it's the thing that we like, great. And if it's something that we don't really like, hey, guess what? That's you play by the rules that are there. Anyways, let's continue.
To get something right here, and we cannot go along with the status quo. Well, on January 2nd, two of my fellow colleagues and myself, Matt Gaetz, Scott Perry, we walked into Leader McCarthy's office after whipping votes all day long and handed him 218 votes. We said, here it is, let's seal the deal. Here's some common sense issues that you can put forward, some promises that you can make, single member motion to vacate. So there is accountability on the third in line to the presidency of the United States. You cannot demand more responsibility and follow Nancy Pelosi's precedents of less accountability. So this is our check and balance on the speaker. And that was a priority for me personally, certainly, and for many others. But then things like bring the Texas border plan to the floor for a vote. Bring a term limits bill to the floor for a vote. Any member who wants to reduce spending in an amendment will make that amendment in order so we can bring it to the floor and have a vote. Earmarks, bring them to the floor individually for a vote. This is spending money that we do not have. So let's at least have a vote on it instead of packing it into a bill where we'd have no option to either swallow the whole thing or say no way. These are things that we presented to him. He solicited a list from us of committee assignments. All members provide committee assignment requests. We know where our talents and skills are best utilized, and we provided that list. Kevin McCarthy made a great argument saying, listen, the people in this group only want 2 committees. I need you spread out. I want you to have more influence. And we agreed with that. And we said, this is a time constraint on many of the members. It's a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure, but we're willing to take that sacrifice and have these committee assignments that bear more pressure. And so we provided that to him. And then January 2nd, when all of that was laid on the table, Kevin McCarthy laughed us out of the room, said that it was a selfish wish list, and would not take the deal. Well, now here we stand, Michael. I no longer have those 218 votes to provide to Kevin McCarthy. So it doesn't matter if I go to the floor today and vote for Kevin McCarthy, because there are now more than ever votes that he does not have to get to that speakership. This is very important to know. He walked out of that meeting and lied about what we requested. Trust is absolutely broken if there was any to begin with.
And like Lauren just said, trust was broken. They brokered some things. They got concessions. They sort of had a deal. They walked in the office with Matt Gaetz and the other gentlemen, the 3 of them. They said, we've got the votes for you, but here's what we would like in return. Let's get to work. And he comes out and basically lies about what happened. And if there's somebody that I'm going to believe, folks, right now, it's going to be Matt Gaetz. It's going to be Lauren Boebart. I am not going to believe Kevin McCarthy. He is part of the establishment swamp, folks. Yes, he's a little bit more conservative than others, but you know what? Tiny little bit of conservatism. We don't need that anymore. We need a big difference, big, bold difference. That's a difference. If someone's conservative here, we want someone that's, hugely conservative.
And this is a huge problem. We want unity in the Republican Party. And I believe now is the time to start seriously considering consensus candidates who will unify the Republican Party so we can get to work for the American people.
This is really important context, I think, because what you're saying is over the summer, Leader McCarthy just didn't think he needed you guys because there were supposed to be more Republicans in the House. And so he would be able to win the speakership without having your votes along. Because of what happened, that turned out to be a bad bet. And when you make bad bets, you got to pay the price for those bad bets. And you bring up this other point, which is trust. And I think this is really important because a lot of this debate has focused on how on the issues, Kevin McCarthy is relatively pretty good. We come from a world of John Boehners, so I guess Kevin McCarthy is more conservative than John Boehner. But what you're saying is, no, it's really about trust. When we're talking about leadership elections, we need to be able to trust the leader. And what you're saying is, you don't think that Leader McCarthy has proven himself trustworthy.
Correct. And that's why we wanted the tools implemented to where maybe we don't need to trust him, because the individual member is empowered enough to get the job done and is not ruled by a dictator as speaker. This is not a kingdom that we live in. We don't anoint a king. I believe that this is how our founding fathers intended this process to work. Our vote is there to be debated, not just rubber stamped and cast to the biggest fundraiser. But you cannot have good faith negotiations where trust is absent. And so that's why motion to vacate was so important to me, because that is the check and balance on this position. If you break trust, if you don't do what you promised, well, buddy, you're out of there. And he has already shown he's not willing to do that. I still have not seen a public announcement of a single member motion to vacate. He's lying to the American
Lauren, for those
people,
who don't, for those listening who don't know what that is, what is a motion to vacate?
A motion to vacate gives us the opportunity to remove the speaker and have another vote for speaker if necessary. This is something that does not get used, but it's available. This is something Thomas Jefferson wrote and has been in effect for nearly 2 centuries. And Nancy Pelosi was the first speaker in history to modify that. She removed that individual empowerment from the member and said, you no longer have a say in this. I get to rule.
And see, that's exactly what happened with Nancy Pelosi under her, queenship. This is what she did. The single member or the multi-member rule to vacate was basically taken off, from the House of Representatives, which is one of the reasons why. And then if anybody dared to do anything against Nancy Pelosi and those that were ruling in the Democratic caucus at that time, the retribution to them was absolutely enormous. They were threatened with being primaried. They would be threatened of not getting funding for their re-election campaigns. They would not get committee selection seats. I mean, all those things that can happen if you decide not to fall lockstep barrel with the ruling party class and the dictator at the top, who happened to be Nancy Pelosi. And Kevin McCarthy just wanted to continue in that vein.
How I want, and you don't have a check, you don't have a balance. Kevin McCarthy wanted to leave that as Nancy Pelosi had it. There were concessions. He got down to 50, got down to 20, got down to 5. No, Thomas Jefferson wrote it as one member. Any one member can bring that motion to vacate the chair forward. And that is our accountability. This is something that was my red line. And I've only heard from a staff member who chased us out of the GOP conference and begged us to vote for Kevin McCarthy. We'll give you a single member motion to vacate. And I said, that's adorable. Where's Kevin saying it?
So I guess this is now where the rubber meets the road. And I know you're short on time. So what happens after all of this context? I mean, I think you've explained your position very, very well. I think that it is pretty clear that Leader McCarthy, he thought he had the votes and he didn't have the votes. And this same thing happened in 2015. Let's not forget, Kevin McCarthy was the heir apparent after John Boehner. He didn't have the votes, and that's how Paul Ryan emerged as the compromise candidate. So what happens? What could Kevin McCarthy come out and say right now that would win over your votes and maybe the votes of your colleagues in the Freedom Caucus? Or if there's nothing that he could say, who would you support today? I know that this is a little bit in flux, but who would you support today to replace him?
Right. So we have been offering a menu of other candidates. I don't believe that my switching to Kevin McCarthy matters, because there are so many who are solidly, Kevin, you can issue a public apology. You can change all the rules. You can wear a straitjacket and just have a portrait that says that you're speaker and we get to run this place. And they're not going to vote for Kevin McCarthy. So at this point, we do have to start looking forward to other candidates. And I can name 200 who are potential candidates right out of the conference GOP. I'm excluding myself, so that's why that number is 200, and Kevin's excluded as well. But this is something that we have to start talking about. We've presented Jim Jordan. We have presented Andy Biggs. We've presented Byron Donalds. I've heard Jim Banks' name be voted on during these votes. Maybe it's someone outside of Congress. Maybe it's a Lee Zeldin who actually won us the majority. Without his efforts in New York running for governor, we wouldn't have the majority. Yeah. And maybe it's someone who is in the conference, like a Kevin Hern, who is currently chairman of the Republican Study Committee, which is the largest caucus in the Republican conference.
And there's so many other great candidates. I know Steve Bannon has been talking about this, and we talked about this before too. I'll tell you what, why not bring in Donald Trump, folks? That would be absolutely phenomenal. Now, the question is, you have a lot of Republicans out there that don't have that titanium spine, though. They've got the spine of a jellyfish. So I'm not sure that all of them would be willing to put their vote out there for President Trump, because they would just be afraid of the blowback that they get from the mainstream media and, from their other colleagues that are never Trumpers, because there's a ton of those, those rhinos that are out there, folks. There are a lot of rhinos still in the halls of Congress. But President Trump would be phenomenal, maybe for a short period of time, maybe like for the first 100 days, or at least, wouldn't you want him to be leading the negotiations in terms of what's happening with the debt ceiling that's coming up and the continuing resolutions and all these things? Wouldn't you want a master negotiator to be there? I mean, Trump would be phenomenal. And Steve Bannon has been talking about this for a long time.
He was unanimously elected with 173 votes to chair that committee, and he actually has a balanced budget that he wants to put on the floor, which is another thing that Kevin denied in our proposal on January 2nd. So maybe it's someone like that who already has the trust of the conference and can truly get to 218.
Before I let you go, Lauren, is the trust now just irreparably broken? That is to say, if Kevin McCarthy came out and issued a statement and said, okay, I'll give you single member motion to vacate. Okay, I'll give you this, that, or the other thing. One, would that change your vote? And two, would that change enough votes to put him into the speakership? I know you've suggested maybe not, but just to be totally clear, are you saying that from the people you're talking to, McCarthy's speaker candidacy is actually dead?
It's dead, yes. The nails are in the coffin. And there are plenty of members who are cheering our efforts on, who are afraid of retribution. We were threatened in conference. It was a nightmare in there. We were threatened by steering committee members who actually assign committees to members of Congress that if we vote against Kevin at all, we will not receive committee assignments. And Kevin McCarthy affirmed that. He stood up and said, your district elects you, your conference elects what committee you are assigned to. And so trust is broken. As it stands for me, I am a no on Kevin. And there are too many others who are there who don't allow him to get to 218. He doesn't have the numbers, Michael.
Wow. That's really, really big. And I have to tell you, I know that people are pulling their hair out over this, especially in the establishment GOP. To me, this is politics.
This is a constitutional republic at work.
This is it. This is kind of how it works. And if you're going to make bets in politics, then you got to make sure those bets pay off, or you're going to pay the price. And if you want a leadership role, I know you recently had an interview on television where the host, who will remain unnamed, was yelling because he said, "Well, Kevin McCarthy."
And who was this unnamed host? Who was this unnamed host? Sean Hannity, folks. Sean Hannity interviewed Lauren Boebart and was basically saying, well, you know what? You've only got 20 on your side, and there's got 200 for Kevin McCarthy. Shouldn't it be you guys that would change? Sean, what happened? What happened to you? Come on. Have you gone over to the other side? I mean, this is unbelievable. What is so great about having Kevin McCarthy? Again, as I've said before, we conservatives, we're the Charlie Browns of politics. We keep thinking that we're going to kick that political football through the uprights and score a field goal and win the game. And Lucy are the rhinos and the establishment. And they keep telling us, hey, This time, we'll listen to you. This time, I'm going to hold. I'm not going to pull it back. I'm not going to pull back my promise. I'm not going to lie to you anymore. I'm going to keep the football down there, and I want you to go ahead and kick it right through. Come on, Charlie Brown. And we always fall for it. Every single freaking time. That's what happens. And I don't know where Sean is on this and some of the others. You're supposed to be conservatives. Could you imagine? Rush Limbaugh is rolling over in his grave listening to these people, because Rush Limbaugh would have been exactly on the side of Lauren Boebart, Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, the other members of the Freedom Caucus. Abso-freaking-lutely. Let's continue.
McCarthy has 200 votes. You only have 20 votes. Well, I thought you made the point very well. The first test of a congressional leader, someone who is in leadership, someone who's the Speaker of the House, is can you get the votes that it takes to put you into the office? Because the whole job is getting the votes and creating consensus. Lauren, thank you so much for taking.
Anyways, folks, that was the interview. I hope you like my reaction to it. Whenever I do these videos, it's really, I'm just speaking as I think that you folks are out there, MAGA, conservatives. Now, there may be some of you out there that have obviously a different opinion, and that's fine. And if you do, put them down in the comments below. I'd really like to know what you guys think. Do you really think that we take another chance with Lucy and the political football, which is Kevin McCarthy? Do we really believe it that this time they're going to do what they say? I mean, look at the trust issues here. Once he felt that he didn't need them, as Lauren said, hey, we don't need you guys anymore. Forget what we talked about. And then, now that you need these people, oh, come on back. Maybe we'll do it. Wait, trust. That's tough, folks. When you break trust, it's really, really tough. And I'm hoping and we're praying that these 18, 19 members just don't, fall, or I don't know, in politics, anything happens right at the very end. You see somebody that just two people going at it in the primary all the time and saying, harsh things, mean things. And then afterwards, everybody's, all buddy, kumbaya, come together moment, basically. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I just really hope that they stand their ground, get somebody other than Kevin McCarthy. Trump would be phenomenal. Lee Zeldin would be a great choice, a consensus candidate or whatever. That's what we need. Anyways, we appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, like, share, and follow us. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show, my reaction video. And I'll leave you with my final thought, as I always do, and that is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. We'll see you again next time, folks. Take care and stay safe.